Hi, my name is Anna Ruddell, and I'm the choir director here at FUMC. I was asked to share about a topic that I mentioned during one of our meetings, which is that Christmas for me is negotiable. So, I kind of need to explain. Um, Up until about 3 or 4 months ago, when my parents moved to Wenatchee, I've never actually lived in the same town as other family members. And I don't mean like the people who lived in my house. Grew up with my mom and my dad, my brother, all in the same house. I'm talking like grandparents, aunts, and uncles and cousins, all that. For the first few years of my life, we lived in Stewart's Draft, Virginia, and my mom's family was primarily around Knoxville, Tennessee. Dad's family was in North or South Carolina. So, a lot of my earliest memories of seeing family involved driving for a long time and then ending up at somebody's house, having dinner, telling stories, and then staying a few nights on somebody's couch or somebody's guest room bed before we would head back to where we lived. When I was 7 years old, we moved from Virginia up to Alaska, and that changed a lot of stuff because we couldn't drive to go see family anymore unless we wanted it to take literally 2 weeks. We couldn't go for long weekends, and so we kind of developed a system where we would go visit during the summer and we would go visit during Christmas. The summer trips were able to be a little more leisurely because my brother and I were in school at that age, and my mom taught fifth grade. So during the summers, we had some time when we had a little bit of flex time. We could go down for 2 or 3 weeks. But Christmas was where things got a little interesting. My dad was a pastor, and that was one of the main reasons we moved up to Alaska in the first place. He took a job at the First Presbyterian Church of Wasilla, and because he was a pastor, Christmas Eve was kind of one of those things he had to be there for. There were usually 2 or 3 Christmas Eve services, and depending on where those fell in the week, we had to make sure that he was there for those services. That meant if we were going to travel out of state to see the family, we had about a week usually, somewhere in that time between Christmas and New Year's, before Dad needed to be back to do other things. Now, I don't know how familiar you guys are with Alaska or with the Anchorage International Airport, which is where we would have flown in and out of, but most flights in and out of the Anchorage Airport happen between the hours of 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. So, with luck and timing and some napping on planes and in the car, we were actually for several years able to attend Christmas Eve services in Wasilla and then drive about an hour south to Anchorage, catch 2 or 3 planes at anywhere from midnight to 2 or 3 in the morning, and then be in Tennessee or North Carolina about 14 to 18 hours after we started the whole journey. Now, this meant that Christmas Day was a traveling day. We were not stationary, we were traveling across the country, but my mom and dad had an answer for that, thankfully. Usually, we would just have Christmas a day early. We would actually open presents the morning of Christmas Eve, and then we would still have some family time together that day before we started doing the Christmas Eve services that night. Plus, once we got to where we were going, usually we got to have Christmas again, because we got to have Christmas with the grandparents and the cousins from one side, and then if we were visiting the other side, we often got to have it a third time, because we would do it with both sides of the family. And so for about a decade, that was the pattern. We would leave Alaska sometime in the extremely early hours of Christmas morning. We'd fly to Tennessee. We'd have about 2 or 3 days in Tennessee. We'd drive a day to get to South or North Carolina, have about 2 or 3 days there, drive back to Tennessee, then fly back to Alaska. Usually the whole thing took about a week or just over that. It took me a few years to realize that this gave me a rather unique outlook on things. For one thing, it took me several years to realize not everybody has like favorite airports. Like, I didn't realize that was a thing to not have a favorite airport. But all of the traveling, all of the here and there, and just everything changing helped me realize that most everything people associate with Christmas is negotiable. To some people, Christmas is a date. It is the 25th of December. But when I was growing up and we were doing this traveling on Christmas, there was just over a decade where the 25th was not food and family and presents. It was layovers and sleeping on a plane and trying to make it to our next gate. There were even years when we were unable to see one side of the family or the other for whatever reason. And so Christmas would be whenever the next time we saw them was. We might do Christmas in June or July because that was when we had everybody in the same room. To some people, Christmas is an atmosphere. It's decorations, it's the snow, it's the gifts. And for many years that was true for me too. I loved the lights, I loved the packages under the tree, I loved getting to decorate everything and put up all the ornaments in their specific locations. And I still do, to be truthful. But that's not necessarily it either. I remember plenty of years where we would actually arrive after most other folks in the family had had their Christmas. They maybe had had their Christmas on Christmas, and because they had another set of grandparents too, my cousins did. They had to go to a second Christmas as well. There were times when all of the presents we got had to be gift cards because my aunts and uncles weren't sure what else would pass TSA's screenings to go back in our suitcases. And if you've ever been to Tennessee or North or South Carolina, you know that December and Christmas and snow don't necessarily go together down there. So what if Christmas isn't the date? And it's not the decorations, and it's not the snow, and it's not the gifts. How is it possible that almost every aspect that people commonly use to describe a particular holiday isn't actually necessary? This is where negotiable comes in. This is why I use the word negotiable. Because to me, it's not the calendar date, and it's not the snow, and it's not the food or the gift. It's not even the church services. COVID taught us that well and truly. To me, Christmas is the time that you spend and the people you are choosing to spend it with. But like I said, that's me. You kind of have to decide for yourself. What is Christmas? What is the core of it? What is the thing that cannot be changed? Is there something that can't be changed? What would happen if everything to do with Christmas was negotiable?